It's a pleasure for me to be here in Shanghai. Thanks very much to Simba Events for organizing this. Jane, thank you very much to you especially, and Isabella. I'm always happy to be in Shanghai and in China. You probably have the best food in the world. Sorry for the Italians or French who are here in the room, but that's reality. What I'm going to do today, I'm head of R&D of DMK. We are Germany's biggest dairy company. We are the 6th biggest in Europe, and we are the 12th biggest in the world. So we are about the size of Menu here in China. So we are a significant player in Germany and in Europe. I give you just a little bit of an introduction on only one slide. Actually, we are only 4 years old. We are the fusion of the #1 and the #2 company, dairy company in Germany. So we have a turnover of about 40 billion RMB, 5 billion euros. We have 7,500 employees and 9,000 owners because we are a cooperative. We do have 28 factories in Germany and 3 factories right now in the Netherlands. So we are a big dairy company. We are a German-Dutch dairy company, and we are growing. Since we have 7 billion liters of milk, so every 4th cow in Germany is working for us. And since about 2 weeks' time, we have 1 billion liter more of milk because we fused with the 2nd biggest Dutch cheese company. Now, if you have 7 billion liters of milk, you can do quite a lot with that. We have now in total not 350,000 tons of cheese, but in reality now it's with Docas 480,000 tons of cheese. So quite a lot of things we have in our portfolio. We have butter, we have milk powder, we have infant formula, we have ice cream, we have yogurt, we have drink milk, we have mozzarella, every kind of cheese you can imagine, we have butter. So we are a complete dairy company. But today is not about, for me, it's not about talking about DMK. That was the only introduction slide of DMK. I would like to talk about the following topics. I'm not going to give you a detailed overview of our portfolio, and I'm not going to give you an overview of all the trends which are in dairy because you know this. I'm highlighting on 3 of those trends which are important for us and which I think are important for the dairy industry in principle. And I use these 3 examples as examples to explain you and to elaborate a little bit further what is nutrition and health for us to focus, what is indulgence, and what is convenience. In a nutshell, in summary, this is basically the topics I would like to tell you, and I would like to spread and give you the overview what's happening in the world. Not just in Europe, not just in North America, not just in Asia, but what is happening in dairy in the world. So coming to the first topic, leveraging natural benefits. I name it here nutrition and health. Yesterday in the presentation of Nielsen, it was called health and convenience. Some people call it health and well-being. In reality, that's all the same, just with a different focus. It's not about health and nutrition, so it's not the medical side of it, it's the pleasure side of it, it's the nutritional side of it. We are in dairy, and dairy is about nutrition. What I have here, and this is data which I got from the Innova database we use, from Innova. Yesterday was an Innova presentation about key trends. I'm picking up some of these things as well. The premium price you can get for dairy, you can get it with protein claims. What you see here, the red bar on the left side, this is the average price in US dollars per kilogram, and you multiply these numbers by 7 and you have RMB. The average price you can see when you put something with a health claim on the market. And you can see straight away, if you go to the 3rd bar on the right, the higher one, the protein one, that if you have protein claims, you can actually ask for a very high price. If you have, we had yesterday as well the example of free from, if you can show that you don't add sugars except the ones which is in milk anyway as lactose, so free from something, you can as well have a higher price. And if you go just for low calorie or for low sugar or for fortification with vitamins, you don't get a very high price. So if you would like to have a dairy product which is rather profitable with a higher price, you better go for those trends like proteins, which are right now on the market. So premium price today is, at least in Europe and in North America, equal with protein claims. This chart here is basically a comparison of the product launches globally compared 2011 to 2015, so the end of last year. And what was shown clearly, the blue bars are the ones from 2011 and the green bars are from 2015. And this is all dairy launches which are tracked with so-called clean label trends. So free from, low off, and you can see on the left side, Asia Pacific, this is mainly China, that the clean label trends increased in the last 5 years. They increased as well significantly in Eastern Europe, not so much in Latin America, not so much in Northern America, not so much in Western Europe. Why? Because certain of these trends are already existing in these markets. So certain things which are happening in Europe or in North America are actually coming in Asia. They are coming maybe 2 or 3 years later, but they might come much faster. I give you a couple of examples here. The examples I use are just examples. There is no judgment in there when I use, for example, a Chinese example from Ala. It's just that I found this in the database. I could use 10 examples or 50, and nevertheless I would not cover all products. I only want to make a point here, and the point is that if you want to have a clean label image, packaging plays a huge role. Overall, I'm responsible at DMK for product, process, and packaging. And packaging is part of the whole story. It starts with packaging and it ends with the packaging. If your packaging does not reflect what the product should say, then the consumer will never realize what's in there. In North America, there are products coming back on the market in a glass bottle or in a glass jar, and the consumer instantly sees, oh, this is old, traditional. That's what is perceived as traditional in Northern Europe or in North America. But this is more niche because glass will never take over the dominance of PET or of PE. Now the examples you see here, they are just examples, and they should demonstrate and make the point that packaging is part of the whole story. As well, the yogurt cultures, which are in yogurt, are an essential part. Again, percentage of product launches which were tracked in the years 2011 versus 2015. And you can see that in the last 4 years, when the yogurt was launched, and digestive claims, so something about your digestion, it's good for your stomach, it's good for your overall digestion, these claims increased not only in Asia Pacific or in Eastern Europe, they increased everywhere. So consumers are looking for that, and those companies who can talk about their included probiotic or just the starter cultures, they have a story to tell which the consumer is listening to. Now, of course, what's happening is that you have to be sure which cultures you use for your product, and you have to be clear that a consumer can understand the benefit of it. So if you talk about the regular yogurt cultures which are in a product, that's not a real good story. You have to tell something on top. Certain strains which are, for example, used in infant formula, you can find them as well in products, and these are again just examples. My impression is that Chinese brands at this point of time, they compete stronger about the content of cultures than European or North American products, but maybe that's just because certain trends are over in one part of the world and they float around the globe and they come now to Asia Pacific. Now, the trend which was very strong, prebiotics are carbohydrate fibers. They are what I call a lunchbox for bacteria. They are in fact those carbohydrates which feed the gut bacteria. They were very much on trend because it's very easy to add them in a product. It's carbohydrate fibers. You don't have to take care too much about stability compared to the bacteria. And for a while, the market was full with added prebiotics or added functional fibers in dairy products. Now this declined in the last 4 years. Again, the number of product launches tracked compared to 2011 to 2015 showed that basically in every region, this trend was on decline for regular yogurt culture. So for yogurt, which added prebiotic fibers, this trend is going a little bit backwards compared to the protein trend. Again, some examples. It's now much more positioned for digestive health and not just for helping the bacteria to be stable, the starter cultures to be active. It's right now much more about specific carbohydrates, GOS, FOS, all these things which we will hear later in the morning. It's part of a whole story, and it's not just the things by itself. As, again, when we talk about fermented dairy products, it's good if you have the whole story and not just the starter cultures in mind. Now, yesterday, there was, on the last session, there was a discussion or a question about lactose-free. And lactose-free is, in fact, a trend which is already very strong in North America and in Western Europe. And surprisingly, it's not fully here yet in Asia Pacific, because here the consumer might have a bigger need for it, because more Asian consumers have a challenge to digest lactose, the sugar which is in milk. Nevertheless, you can see here in Asia, especially in China, that the regulatory level is 10 times higher to talk about lactose-free than compared in Europe. And even when you compare the products, again, the numbers of product launches in the last 4 years, 2011 versus 2015, on the left side it's Asia Pacific, mainly China, very low in numbers compared to Latin America, to North America, and to Western Europe. So this is a trend which will come very strongly, I believe, in Asia Pacific. It's not that consumers here don't have a need, it's just that different things are higher in priority to be communicated to the consumer. And maybe because certain trends are very much pushed in Europe by those companies who offer lactose-free products in the market. So it's still to come, and it will come, and I'm very convinced about this, that in 2 or 3 years' time, you will see a much higher number of dairy products which are lactose-free in the Asian and in specific in the Chinese market. Again, some examples. Interestingly enough, lactose-free, these are just 3 products launched in the United States, in Finland, and in the United Kingdom. This trend of lactose-free is overlapping different platforms. So it's not just lactose-free by itself. It's very often combined with less lactose, higher protein, less lactose, more calcium, less lactose, higher whey protein. So always something less, then on top something specific with a benefit on top. So the category lactose-free seems not to fly by itself. It needs still a little bit an additional positive benefit, because lactose-free would mean you take something off, and the consumer, in principle, would like to have something added because it gives him a benefit or added value. A short excursion to 2 or 3 other dairy products. Why I'm doing this? I think that in the categories where consumers go into specific niches, certain trends can develop, and if we don't watch this, we might we might miss some of the needs consumers have, and these are examples of other dairy sources than cow milk, so for example goat milk or donkey milk or other things, very, very small, a niche, but in fact very specific and sometimes very high in prices. This could well be categories which you might see in certain areas in China coming up, because cows are not those animals who have milk, the only ones who have milk. There are other specific as well. Milk is different, it's been digested in a different way, the fat globules have a different size, and you can see products here from the Netherlands, goat milk, from Italy, a goat milk, and in fact the Middle East is coming up as well, because very often consumers like the milk from the animals they know in their normal environment, and nothing which is very unrestrained. Goat milk, for example, in Germany would not fly, the consumer is not looking for that, because he combines milk with cows. A short excursion, but in fact I'm making this very short because there is a presentation about the A2 milk afterwards in the morning. I think the second talk after mine. The regular standard milk has A1 and A2 proteins. I'm not going to elaborate this in detail because the speaker after me will do that. What needs to be demonstrate it even more, I think, is to be seen that more scientific data needs to be shown. So there's a certain level of proof, which probably the talk after mine will demonstrate this. There are different opportunities where you could go to with regard to dairy sources and milk with a different connection. So far today, the majority of milk comes from animals which have A2, A1, A2, so the regular milk is basically consisting in this protein. But the presenter after me will probably elaborate this much further. Now, coming back to dairy proteins, why they play a very strong and a very important role in protein trends. I compared here, or we compared here the numbers. We took 2011 as the baseline, as 100. And what you could see that very often products which claim high in protein, they add other protein sources, sometimes vegetable protein sources, so soy protein, for example, but very often more than 40 to 60%, they have a similar dairy protein source, so they, for example, add whey protein on top. So even more of dairy protein. Whey protein are those proteins which are sometimes added in sports nutrition or in infant formula. And we have this, for example, as well in our portfolio, because if you have a lot of milk and you produce a lot of cheese, you have a lot of whey. Now, coming back again to the proteins. Proteins are extremely significant for the dairy category. They will continue their way in growth. Globally, the dairy launches with protein claims, they are rising. You can see that already in Asia Pacific, this is coming up again. Eastern Europe, very small. Latin America, marginal. North America, very strong with proteins. Western Europe as well. So many, many dairy launches, they talk about protein, protein, protein. Some examples, proteins, of course, are very beneficial. They are matching different target groups. You can use them for nutrition. They are used for if you're in a morning rush. They are used for maintaining muscle mass. They are used for the children growth. So all the benefits which are linked and attached to proteins, they in fact are used for the claiming and for the elaboration of the benefit of dairy products. The third point I'm going to elaborate is indulgence. So the various flavor and texture diversification. If you look which kind of yogurts are in fact, and yogurts is the main category, yogurts and beverages is the main category which is driving the consumption of dairy products in the world. If you go to non-powdered products or non-cheese products, in fact, it's the strawberry flavor the world likes. Each one of you, majority-wise, likes strawberry. It doesn't matter if you live in China, if you live in Vietnam, if you live in Eastern Europe, if you live in Latin America, North America, Western Europe, the consumer always wants to have strawberry, strawberry, strawberry. And of course, there's not only one strawberry flavor, so it's the time for the flavor houses in the first step, and the time for those companies who offer strawberry. Now, if only strawberry flavor would be on the market, it would be an extremely boring category. In Asia Pacific, it's vanilla, which is rising more. In other areas, it's blueberry, which is rising more. But again, you could pick maybe 4 or 5 main flavors, and you hit 90% of the people who like this kind of product. If you want to do something different, you need to find a niche. And the niches will be, at least at this point of time, rather small compared to the majority of strawberry. If you go in different flavors, then you suddenly have a demand that you have to fill a niche. This is a product which is launched. These are products which are launched in the UK. They go for marmalade, they go for carrot cake, they go for raspberry donut. This could well be an opportunity that there are flavors specifically for certain products in China, which only China will have, and which is specifically for the Chinese consumer who looks for certain flavors. And this might be even stronger for a Chinese company to fulfill this need on dairy than a Western company who might not know exactly what this flavor is. So it's a time of collaboration between Chinese flavor houses and, for example, Western dairy companies. Nevertheless, it's not only about the flavor. Superfruits are kicking in. These are those fruits which are extremely rich in vitamins. you look wherever in the world, superfruits is adding on top a benefit for the consumer. Even on the right side, on the bottom, even dragon fruit is coming in. Flavors which in Europe nobody knows exactly what it is because we are not used to consumption of these fruits. But you in China, for you, it's probably very standard. And so superfruits and a general dairy healthy image gives new snacking occasions for dairy consumption. The time where you just basically add flavors seems to be somehow not satisfying enough for the consumers. The consumers looked for a while just for strawberry flavoring, but then came the time when fruit concentrate was added, so fruit base or fruit puree. And now you see more and more products which make the link between classical dairy and dairy beverages. So fruit juices are added, fruit concentrate is added, and there the dairy category stretches and enlarges very much in the beverage category. So the latest trend is to mix yogurt, for example, with very valuable fruit. But cheese, for example, is coming as well. It's not so strong as white dairy so far, but it comes because you find cheeses already more and more in the market, especially in Japan as an example, in the US, in the UK, where you have cheeses with fruit flavors. This is for a European consumer unusual because he considers cheese as a category by himself. But if you go for a cheese category which has a fruit or a cinnamon or a vegetable flavor, this will be categories which are rather new compared to the standard products which you find in Europe. Now, the trend extending from flavor to texture is a trend. I personally believe strongly in that because it's not just about the flavor of a product. The moment a product is in our mouth, the flavor is one part, but the texture is this category which is making us to like or to dislike a product. So new product development in the yogurt category has very long focused just on flavor. Now the texture claims are coming up more and more, and you see the green line is basically an example of Greek yogurt. Greek yogurt is low in fat and high in protein. It has a very thick texture. It's very strong in the US already. It's coming a little bit later in Asia Pacific, in Latin America, and these are numbers compared in the last 7 years. And Europe and Asia Pacific is a little bit behind, but the consumer looks more and more for yogurt with a rather thick or creamy texture, something which helps him to be a little bit more stuffed and in separation and in distinction from, let's say, a dairy beverage. The Greek yogurt style, skyr, which is a traditional Icelandic product, it's about 400 to 500 years old. Ala launched this as well in Europe. Kefir, all these old textures, they seem to come back again because in texture differentiation, there's a wider possibility for the consumer to separate a product in its mouth and not just with the flavor with his nose or with his taste. Likewise, very traditional yogurt types, they are re-emerging again, and they really are surprising. If you look into the story, the success story Chobani did in the US with a protein yogurt, it's amazing how quickly a company which was 6 years, 7 years not existing suddenly is a business of 10, 20, 25 billion RMB, really rapidly existing, developing like the consumer waited for that. I don't know how the consumer in China is waiting for this, but if a company who is expanding, and Chobani is already in Australia, it will hit the market and the consumer will decide yes or no, and then it will go very fast in Asia with a yes or with a no. Now the last point is about convenience. We are all moving very much forward for on the go. I saw this morning already a couple of people who had their breakfast here, not at home, not at the restaurant, but on the go. People who don't have time or who don't spend the time, who would like to eat their breakfast or their between the meals on the go, they're looking for products who are convenient. Dairy products, just where you have a spoon, nobody is looking for that, at least not many people are looking for that anymore. As I said, there's a very strong trend in dairy drinks as a breakfast replacer, and there's a very strong trend of which kind of products can I buy, which I can take in the subway, on the way to work, or maybe in the office. You find in the US products which are in a pouch to drink. You find products which are in a bottle. You find products which are basically in a glass bottle. You have all offering dairy-based liquid breakfast solution. They are sometimes mixed with grains or cereals, but they are still dairy products. So it's not a cereal product with dairy on top. It's dairy products with added grains, for example. Quaker launched just last year in China a breakfast drink based on oat. So again, this is a carbohydrate trend. The stronger trend is the protein trend we see. In the UK, there was, when you talk about carbohydrates, you have to consume clearly, you have to communicate clearly to the consumer that he knows why he should use this product for which consumption occasion. So if you say crab in the morning, it's clear that this is a breakfast replacer, a dairy-based, in this case with a carbohydrate added. Now pouches, they are coming. In maybe 5 years ago, they were considered, this is something for children because you suckle from it, you have a very soft packaging, but more and more, especially in Asia, I see younger women consuming this. It's not just for children anymore, it's a very light packaging. It hits in Australia, in Poland, the example, in Australia again, and in Macedonia, a German company, Ehrmann. These on-the-go pouches are very convenient. They are fun for children, of course, but they are extremely convenient to be consumed because they are in the texture in between a beverage and a dairy product with a thick texture. So there's a lot of room to grow with these kind of products in these kind of packaging. Again, cheeses are moving as well on the go. They are snacking occasions with Tesco. This is a big retailer in the UK. They even put in to attract children, they put in little puzzle pieces for children, that it's not only the product which attracts the children, but as well it's a toy, it's a connection to it. We heard yesterday the example of Nielsen again, that consumers need to be bound to a product, and a toy or a playing occasion is one thing which can be made specially because when, and majority-wise, when the woman goes shopping with the children looks for the toy and not just regular for the dairy product because it's a dual application then. So new portable cheese snacks, they will arrive more and more and more in the form of a combined lunchbox, in a form that you have a snack on the go, in a form that it's combined with a cracker. So these are new opportunities for those companies who produce cheese, that you just don't have big slices of cheese you're selling. You sell it basically in a whole meal replacer or for completely new snacking occasions. Now in summary, and I'm right ahead of my time, so I think that's good because some speakers will run over their time for sure. In summary, I would like to summarize the following key points. The first category I talked about nutrition and health. So several natural health benefits which are leveraged. They have always different price premiums, but protein has by far the highest price premium. So if you're in dairy and you can talk about higher content of protein, more valuable protein, this is what makes this category thrive. Clean label, we heard yesterday and today, clean label is becoming a more and more dominant standard. It's not only about the food safety issue, it's about the traditional expectation on a dairy category because that's about nutrition. Yogurts with active cultures, they are beneficial, but the consumer doesn't know it by him or herself. You have to tell the consumer that it's good for his digestion, and this really has to happen. So there will be less, currently at least, there's less focus on prebiotics or on fibers compared to the rise of proteins, but it's still there. And if there's a benefit which can be explained, it will still maintain. Dairy, which is rich in protein, is on the trend for nutrition and health, for nutrition definitely. And lactose-free will come even more. In some region, it's there. In Asia Pacific, I think it will come. The second category I talked about was about indulgence. So the yogurt category is exploring much more than just flavors. It goes into healthy superfruits, into new yogurt types. The flavor creativity, which was basically developing this category, you can see not only in white dairy, so in yogurts, but as well in the cheese category. But more and more flavor will be supplemented or maybe replaced by texture. The third part, which is with the third part I was talking about, convenience, a broad variety of dairy innovations. They are targeted for the consumer eating out of home, on the go, not just in the traditional consumption occasions. And we dairy companies, we have to reflect that by offering the right products for out-of-home consumption, and particularly on the go. So breakfast replacer is identified by many, many dairy brands and companies as a new consumption occasion to grow. This is basically what I would like to tell you today, and I'm very happy if I can answer your questions. I don't speak Chinese, so I have to put up the headphone, but please ask your question in Chinese if you don't want to ask them in English. Thank you very much for your attention.
Any questions for Dr. Zink? He's more than happy to answer your questions.
English or Chinese?
Thank you very much, Dr. Zink, for your presentation. It's very informative and very interesting. And so my question is about the sustainability of the dairy drink or dairy protein. I think nowadays there is a concern about the protein supply and from dairy. So there's a lot of discussion about the green protein from the soya, from other plant, or even from marine, etc. So it would be very interesting if you could share your perspective on this trend and the future opportunity and challenge.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for this question. This is a very relevant question because protein is not just protein. I'm of course working for a dairy company, and so I'm stronger in the belief that animal proteins have a benefit. I'm not talking about meat, but animal proteins. If you talk to a nutritionist, he can explain you, he can show you why animal proteins have a different value than, for example, vegetable proteins. So the discussion which is sometimes coming up with soya is a discussion which is not a discussion for dairy proteins. But you are right. One needs to make very clear what are the benefits and what are maybe certain risks you have when you consume certain proteins in a diet. There is, at this point of time, no final judgment which proteins and which balance might be the right one. So companies are developing, dairy companies, they're developing alternatives. So alternatives mean not just vegetable proteins, but the addition of vegetable proteins. But the focus will be, from a dairy side, definitely on dairy proteins, because that's our raw material from a cow. Thank you.
Hello, Dr. Ralf. Just a question about how do you see these trends implication to infant formula? So like the natural and health on the go, probably not indulgence, I think, the implication to infant formula. Thank you.
It's a very good question, because we have in our portfolio infant formula as well. The Humana brand is part of DMK, and when we develop things, of course we are looking that certain developments can be rolled out either for younger consumers, this would be, for example, toddlers, or for older consumers, which would be aged people where I'm starting to become that sooner or later. Now, infant formula is a specific requirement, because for infant formula, this is for those human beings who still grow, who still have a specific need, and it's a specific category. And for example, whey proteins, they are added specifically in this category. You're right, this will not be about indulgence, maybe not even about on the go, but this will be the cross-connecting categories between infant and children nutrition, and then juvenile and adult nutrition. Those companies who have all categories in their portfolio, they have to think the whole way through, and not just as an infant company, infant, or as a company who has only adult nutrition, adult nutrition. It's a challenge, We work on this, but the products have been reformulated, they have a different consistency, and they have different regulations, because for infants the regulation is rather different than for consumer products for you and me.
Hi, Dr. Zink. I'm YP from QHT, and I've got a question. Well, I just want to make a comment first about on-the-go for infant formula. We are actually seeing sachets and tablets being developed in Japan for on-the-go. Yeah.
Yes.
My question is on formulation. So you mentioned about protein being added into dairy.
Yeah.
So about infant formula, I understand DMK have your own line called Humana, and there is clinical evidence to show that added protein in infant formula has a direct relationship with childhood obesity.
Yes.
So I was wondering if DMK, have any sort of views or does any sort of research when it comes to adding a certain amount of protein in infant formula? And if it is, will it affect infant formula or follow-on formula?
Yes. It's a good point you're making, because what happens if you add too many calories, and proteins have calories as well, you have an overflow of calories. So what you have to do, you have to find the right balance between the needed amount of calories for an infant, it could be an infant or a toddler, and not just the right amount, but the right composition of protein. So infant formula has to be sometimes reformulated, having the right proteins in there, but having not too much of them. Then the calorie thing is not basically the problem. But it's a challenge which we cannot solve very easily, but we will have to look into that very much in detail, and we will. But this problem is clear, it's understood, and it will be tackled in a way that you cannot just say, okay, infant formula is basically just a milk powder and that's it for children. You have to be very much careful that you don't add too much protein, again, as some other things, exactly for this obesity issue. Because this is a very big issue in the world, and a child which is already obese will have problems then later on, and as an adult, the problems really then will kick in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a quick question. What is in general dairy industry doing to help reducing the carbon footprint for the sustainability issue?
Okay, this is a very complex question you're asking, because sustainability is a big, big thing. We have a sustainability program in place. Now, one has to be aware that cows are the major problem with the greenhouse effect. It's not just only the industry, the car industry, it's in fact the cows with the methane they are producing. And so we are, at one point, we are obliged to take care about this. We have, not only we as DMK, but other companies have this as well, a sustainability program, which looks on the raw material, which looks on the carbon footprint with regard to that. We think which kind of products we are transporting. Imagine if you transport a powder around the world, or if you transport a product which has 60% water in it, it already puts the whole logistical chain in discussion. But this is a topic which will, those companies who don't take care about sustainability, they have a problem. We are looking into that. We have projects which take care about the reduction of packaging material. We have a project which projects which are taking care about energy reduction and all these things, because it's an energy intense industry, because for milk powder you have to dry and get the water out. But the future will show if we are on the right track with this. The time is too short to explain you in detail this, but all major dairy companies have big programs in sustainability to reduce carbon footprint or to save energy. And it's economically extremely wise to do that as well.
Thanks Zink's presentation. And actually, I have saw one slide about nectar-free product trends. Frankly speaking, I'm a little surprised why it's a big trend in America, but not in Asia countries. As you know, there are big issues for lactose intolerance issue in China, especially in China. So Do you have any idea about these weak trends in Asia countries, especially in China? Why the dairy manufacturer will not develop such kind of product with nectar-free product? Thanks.
Yes, a very simple answer. The consumers are not looking for that strongly enough yet, because companies offer those products which the consumers require. So obviously the consumer in China is not so much in need yet to look for these products. And on the other side, in Europe or North America, many people buy these products who have no problem with lactose intolerance, no problems with lactose digestion, but it's trendy. They think it's in the part of free from, good for you. I believe those people who have a problem with lactose digestion, they know it, because they have problems when they digest, when they cannot digest lactose. But obviously the market in China, the consumer doesn't want to have this yet, but if he asks for it, he will get it straight away, because the products can be developed. The processes are in place. It's up to you to decide if you want to buy these products, and if you give a demand, then the industry will react quickly.
Morning, Dr. Zink. I have two questions. One is about the competition in China market.
Yep.
There are a couple of big
yeah.
dairy companies in China, local ones, as well as there are a lot of international players as well. So the question is, what do you see is going to be the edge to be able to win in the market in China? So that's the first. The second one, how do you see the competition between animal protein and milk, basically milk, against vegetable protein drink?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Two very complex questions you're asking. I personally believe competition is good, because competition helps you to develop a category further. The moment you are in an area where you have no competition, you will slow down. China, of course, is the biggest market in the world. There are many, many people living in this country. There are strong Chinese companies in this market, which is good, because it's their home game. And we as Western companies, we come into your market and we try to offer you products which you don't have yet. We have in certain categories advantages, and in other categories we have disadvantages. But again, I think this market here is so big, and the consumer looks for different varieties that maybe the 2 or 3 major Chinese companies cannot only offer that. I think that the Chinese companies would disagree with me, but I think there is the consumer who decides which kinds of products he would like to have, which kind of development he would like to have. I try to show you that dairy products on other side of the world, they look different. Chinese companies normally stay within China. You cannot find Chinese dairy products in Europe. So the European consumer doesn't know what Chinese dairy products are. On the contrary, you in this market, you have the opportunity to see the variety of dairy products in the world, and it's up to you to decide as consumers which kind of products you would like to consume or which you not like to consume. The fact that Western dairy companies are in this market, they are strongly in the market, tells me that the consumer would like to have variety. And I think this will remain like this, and it doesn't matter which company will win, because this is a competition not about the first or the one who takes the market. This market is too big for that. This market offers opportunities. Even offers opportunities for Western company producing in China. And there comes the link to your second question, animal protein versus vegetable proteins. We have as well projects where we try to replace animal proteins or dairy proteins with vegetable proteins. They have one advantage, they are much, much cheaper compared to animal proteins. But as a cooperative, we are the source of 8 billion liters of animal protein source milk. Now, of course, we and other companies, we will try to replace in a formulation certain amount of animal proteins, maybe with vegetable proteins, but the moment animal proteins have a higher nutritional value or have a much stronger benefit, we will push more for animal proteins. If the consumer would like to have a vegetable protein product with maybe addition of animal proteins, he will get it, he or she will get it. So I think it's not the one or the other, it's the one combined with the other. And you will see products already on the market in Europe which have 10, 20, 30, 40% vegetable protein, And you see this already in other categories, butter versus margarine in Europe, which was 2 categories, and now they add partly one or the other. This category is not about one is better than the other. It's more about one is better suited for one consumer or for one occasion and for the other. It's not just about nutrition, it's as well sometimes about technology. So if the question would be which one is better or which one will win, I would say both will win because both have their advantage, and it might be different in a market where vegetable proteins, like in Asia, is more used for consumption than in Europe, where people combine with protein more animal than vegetable protein. So it's not a yes or no, so it's a depending on answer.
Thank you for your great presentation. I just curious about your opinion about the protein fortification. Because in fact, the average protein intake in Europe and in the US is much higher right now than the recommended.
Yes.
As a leader in this field, so what do you think about the future?
I'm a scientist like you, so I know that people, when they talk about something beneficial, they sometimes tend to exaggerate. If you see proteins are good for you, you tend to consume maybe too much. If you see vitamins are good for you, you tend to consume too much. So we as a company, or the dairy industry, we have to be careful that we are not overloading products with benefits, calories, proteins. So the miracle product which does something, people will consume even more. So proteins have their benefit, but they have calories as well because they are part of nutrition. And so the overconsumption of whatever, if it's proteins or carbohydrates, will give you an overflow of energy, therefore an overflow of calorie. We have to be very clear in communication what is good for you and in which consumption occasion. And sometimes it's just a decision if you bring a product in the market with 100 ml or 100 milliliter and not in 500 mLs or in a 2 kilogram box. Many issues which are in North America is with the overconsumption of calories because you have big portions. You put basically the family box, and the trend that more and more consumers would like to go on the go, smaller volumes, smaller occasions, maybe drives exactly in the other direction. But we as scientists, we have to take care that the right formulation with the right value of energy and benefit is offered to the consumer. Thank you very much for this question. I think it's a very valuable one.
Thank you, Dr. Zink, for your excellent presentation.